Everybody, installment 4 of the 90-day challenge for myself, Road to 300. Today's coffee shop ride. We're in the coffee shop. We're just in the upstairs part of the coffee shop. It's called my kitchen. And we're following up yesterday's 2.5-hour Zone 2 slogfest at just doing some JRA in Zwift, just riding around. One of my favorite things in Zwift is the recent map updates with Paris and France. I don't know why it is that bugs me, but like Paris is kind of in France the last time I checked, so why did you have to make 2 separate worlds? You could have just said France, and you could have had Paris be like, you know, part of France, because it's kind of part of France. I don't know, maybe if I were working at Zwift in the user experience, or maybe running some of the technology, I might have asked him to change that, but I'm not. Feel free to hire me, Zwift. Love to come work out some of those bugs. Anyway, we get to choose between Paris and France, and I will say honestly, the Paris world is, in my opinion, probably one of the most boring. The Champs-Élysées is, it's, I guess, an acceptable crit course. I don't really know why too many people would ride on it, but that being said, right now there are 9,800 people on Watopia, 7,356 on France, and a whopping 2,000 on Paris. So it sounds like the majority of Zwifters probably agree with me, and I wonder how many of those 2,000 people on Paris are actually doing the race right now too. So we're going to choose the France world. I happen to like it. I like some of the climbs on there. I think they're some of the best in Zwift. So yeah, we're going to kick this off, and we're just going to have some fun. I don't know about the Boogeyman, but my legs feel surprisingly fresh and reasonable after yesterday's 2.5-hour slogfest. And something I find interesting is, 2.5 hours at whatever my average power was, 170 to 180 watts average power, is surprisingly very similar to the power I put out in Valley of the Sun road race last year. Now, of course, in the Valley of the Sun road race, there were a lot more literal ups and downs. It's not a particularly hilly race, although there is one hill on every lap that suits me pretty well, and I actually enjoyed that hill. Unfortunately, I got stuck. I don't know what they were doing at Valley of the Sun last year. It's a great race, love it. I think the organizers do a great job, but they did 2 things that aggravated me. Number 1, our lead car was a Volkswagen bus, and it was spitting out diesel fumes, and the funny thing was, it couldn't go around corners fast enough. So a lot of times, the peloton would actually engulf the bus as we were going around corners, until it finally figured out, oh, I need to get the heck out of the way of these racers. I don't need to be 50 yards in front of it when we're doing corners, because they're going to overtake me. And that's exactly what happened. We overtook it repeatedly. So that was number 1. And number 2, the 17 and 18-year-old juniors neutralized our field. They're really fast kids. They're also really aggressive kids too. And the race commissars neutralized our pack. They started the juniors 5 minutes behind us on an 80-mile course. So of course, these pros in waiting are going to overtake some of the Cat 3s. So they neutralized us as the juniors were passing. And instead of getting the juniors well in advance of us, they neutralized us, and then they dropped the junior pack right in front of us. literally right in front of us. Like, I was at the front of the peloton when they did this, and they put the juniors in no less than 20 meters in front of us. So that forced some of the Cat 3s to kind of try to push into that field, and then the juniors kind of sat up, and it literally caused a collision, like a 50-person collision in the field that I got caught up in, and people went around it onto the highway nonetheless, and it split the pack in two. So those people that were able to make it past that wreck got in front of the juniors again, and then the people that weren't able to miss that wreck got stuck behind the juniors. So we literally weren't even allowed to chase because we'd had to neutralize the juniors. Kind of sucked. So in any case, the field behind the juniors that I was stuck in was still pretty competitive. They were still trying to race for like 30th place because of the wreck. So you know, we did some hard efforts on that course that day. The big takeaway is I was trying specifically to be as efficient with my power on that course as I possibly could be. And I even told my race colleagues that day, I want to average power less than 180 watts, which I think on a mostly flat road race, that's actually pretty reasonable. Like, that's not an outrageously low power. That's like, you know, just sitting in wheels when you can, doing your turn when you have to, but sitting in. And that's exactly what I did. So interestingly, my power yesterday averaged pretty similar to a highly competitive road race that draws racers from all over the country. Just a thought. So that being said, we're going to jump in. We're going to do some France, which Paris is part of, but we're not doing Paris. And then we're going to have some coffee. I don't know how long it is for a cookie, but still doing all right. Running on a daylight before running a leg, which is always what you want to go. Wagon. Remember, every time you see a G-Wagon, you've got to say "Gwack." That's the game. Ooh. No, it's a Jeep. It's a Jeep. Awesome. 19,000 feet. This will be my last time up. That won't get me all the way down, but I'm sure it's that going all the way back down again. I don't know. Well, go figure. We finished our coffee shop ride, and the weather phenomenon that we've had for the last 2 days is called an atmospheric river. Well, it dried up, and now it's blue skies and sunny and 50 degrees outside. So it was totally rideable. Instead, we got to throw our hair up in good old unicorn fashion and do some training on the trainers, because we love those. One last thing I want to throw in before we kill it for the day is a discussion about nutrition. I'm going to talk a lot about nutrition. This is a subject that I've studied a lot about over the past several years, because when you're dealing with a kid who is riding a lot and burning sometimes in excess of 3,000 or even 4,000 calories a day, in addition to their already high metabolism, you really have to be careful about what you put in your body. And a lot of people put bad stuff in their body, and they think it's backed by science, but it's really just backed by internet science. Now, I know the funny thing is, I'm here on the internet, on YouTube, you know, telling you what to watch and eat and all that kind of fun stuff. But okay, done a tons of research on this. I'll put a couple links here to show some sources about this. But one of the things that is a common mistake is that people immediately after workout, whether it's what we just did, coffee shop ride, which we didn't do that much effort, it was just for fun, or whether it's a smash fest, they immediately go for their favorite source of protein, in this case, Buffy's, the Wheel Sucker Slayer. This one is now with chocolate and desperation. And then they add it to their favorite smoothie, or they put it in their favorite shaker bottle and shake it up and chug that down, consuming 20, 30, 40 grams of protein. That's not a recovery thing. If you've been told that, then you've been lied to. When you do a hard aerobic or even anaerobic exercise effort for a long period of time, you're actually depleting your glycogen stores, and you're actually potentially burning fat, and not all the good fat, by the way. Not all the fat in your body is supposed to be burned, and you have to replace the glycogen, and you have to replace some of that fat that was burned. Yeah, of course you want to replace, you don't want to replace the bad stuff, right? You don't want to get fat. So eating healthy fats and eating healthy sugars are good for you after a ride. Even really eating some unhealthy sugars are probably not that bad if you've really burned them, right? If you just did what we did, we're not going to be crushing tons of sugar here. We're going to have a relatively normal lunch, followed by a healthy dinner with protein. And that's where we put the protein. We put the protein throughout different portions of the meals throughout the day, not just immediately following a ride or a race. I think the magical number is anywhere between 3 to 1 or 4 to 1, depending upon the source you find, of sugar to protein. Not the other way around, protein to sugar. That's why a lot of people like chocolate milk as a recovery source, because there's actually a pretty decent amount of sugar in there, and they're simple sugars. They break down instantly and immediately start replenishing your glycogen stores, and a little bit of protein. That's actually a pretty good balance. So 3 or 4 to 1, depending upon how you burned. More sugars than protein. Simple sugars are not bad. Refined sugars, that's up to you. You know, whether you chug a Coke afterwards or have something that's sweet, or whether you have something that's more instant burn, but high quality source of instant sugar, less refined, honey, agave syrup, whatever. The idea is to actually replenish those stores, get some sugar in you. Don't just immediately go for the protein and try to smash that. That's not necessarily what you want. So that's my take here today. We are going to have just a relatively normal lunch. For dinner, we're probably going to have a good fat, good protein source of our dinner. So something like tuna or salmon, or something to that effect. Maybe some tofu or something with good lean protein, or maybe low fat or healthy fat protein, and then decent carbohydrates as well. So be sure to look on sources on the internet that don't just have like cheesy titles on them, like Wellness Mama or whatever. I know that's a site, and I'm not trying to single them out, but don't just search for sites for people that are throwing up information that haven't really backed it up with scientific research. There is, again, a lot of information on Dylan Johnson's channel, and we reference that channel a lot because he does a lot of the research for you and then shows you the output for that. Yes, his channel can be kind of dry, but he's also kind of funny. So check those out as well. Again, I'll put a link to his videos, to his channel down in the comments below. So anyway, thanks again for joining us today. Relatively short video. We're going to enjoy some coffee now, and then we're going to go have some lunch. Cheers.